It's the best of 2020, and you all love this one on Human Design with Hannah Coots. And for those of you just tuning in or listening again, here's the lowdown. Human Design is a system developed over 30 years ago that gives you a map that guides you into truly understanding yourself on multiple levels. It brings together principles of astrology, the chakra system, quantum physics, and more. And my guest shares that it's one of the best ways to unlearn and decondition from all of the programming we grow up with. It's helped her transform from experiencing depression to navigating life with more ease, and it can help you. So once we realize our gifts, our vulnerabilities, and more, it's a lot easier to flow with life than to always be up against it. So tune in now to learn how. Welcome to the Wild Wisdom Podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa Finnick, and this is your space to learn more about the importance of slowing down, taking care of yourself, and the mind-body connection. And most importantly, how to reclaim your health by listening to your body's innate wisdom and reconnecting with the earth. If you've been searching for balance and meaning in your life, I have just the guide for you. 5 ways to balance your body, mind, and heart, my new ebook. It's the complete essence of what I love to share with all of you. It's all about connecting with your root wisdom and your pelvic bowl, balancing the root and sacral chakras, and a whole lot more. There are worksheets, journal questions, guided meditations, and tons of insight for you. Go to alyssafinnick.com/Rooted Woman Starter Kit to learn more and get on your way to embodying your rooted woman. And I know how to stay sane and healthy is at the top of everyone's list right now. That's exactly why you're listening to this podcast, right? And for that, I'm truly grateful. But if you're going to go for the wine, which is delicious, I want to tell you about my new favorite clean crafted wine that's 0 added sugar, 0 toxic chemicals, and best of all, I love a wine I can enjoy at night and still get up for my morning yoga and breakfast with my daughter. These grapes are harvested from small family-owned multi-generational vineyards all over the world that practice organic and biodynamic farming. So you're also supporting sustainable farming practices and keeping an old, rich tradition alive, which you know I love to do. Oh, and I must tell you, the wine ships right to your doorstep. So hello, pandemic rescue in a bottle. If you're interested in trying these wines, just DM me on Instagram or Facebook, and I'm happy to help you place an order and make recommendations, or go to scoutandcellar.com/Alyssa Finnick to order right now. Hi, Hannah. Welcome to the show. Appreciate you being on.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much.
So I like to start out with sharing. The audience really loves to know everyone's story because we all have a journey that we go on. And, what led us to get involved in things like human design or yoga therapy for myself, or there's usually a story behind it. Mm-hmm. And so if you're willing to summarize a little bit about what brought you here. What were those kind of significant things that happened?
Yeah, I guess if I'm going to sum it up, long story short, it's just pain, right? It's just suffering, it's struggle, it's challenge, and underlying, like beneath that, was this knowing that it didn't have to be that way. Mm. And there was just that little fire that wouldn't go out, even through, I've struggled with depression my whole life, anxiety for a long, long time. And then all sorts of physical stuff. So it's physical and emotional and mental health just throughout my whole life that was very challenging. Mm-hmm. And I knew it didn't need to be that way, but I couldn't figure it out. Like I was figuring out little things along the way.
Sure, of course.
So I had a lot of success with things like meditation, and I really dove into Buddhism and psychology, and I was a farmer for 6 or 7 years, and I found that to be really healing and meditative.
Oh, wonderful.
But it was just breaking out of a lot of shells. I mean, in a lot of ways I had a very normal upbringing, in that my family was loving but very dysfunctional, right?
Aren't all our families
Yes.
that way? Yes, mine
Exactly.
certainly is.
Yeah. And I love them so much, and I'm so grateful for them. And we all just had a really hard time, you know. So it was needing to get out of some of that, to heal myself, to find out who I really was, and I knew as soon as like I set foot out of the house essentially and went to college. That there was this unlearning that needed to happen, that the real me was really in there, and so it was just like me slowly chiseling away for about 10 years, and then I found human design last year.
Oh, okay.
And since then, since I discovered it, I mean, my life has changed rapidly, like just enormously, and I began by testing with friends and family, by looking at their charts and kind of speaking with them and just learning in the trenches, just learning by, you know, talking to them about their lives and, you know, does this resonate with you because I see it here in your chart, that kind of thing. And then I took a certification course. And here I am now. I guess, what is this? This is February that we're meeting and that we're recording. And I do one-on-one sessions, and I do workshops, and I'm developing this other larger program that uses human design at its foundation to just help people do what I've been doing for the past 10 years of my life, just unlearning and deconditioning and returning to who we really are.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So what is human design?
Yes, that's the big question. Yes. So human design can be defined a few different ways, but really it's a self-discovery tool. And so it's a way to know yourself in an accurate way. So a lot of people are really familiar with the Myers-Briggs, you know, that typology, personality test, or the Enneagram, or people are also really familiar with the chakra system. And those are all ways that we get to know ourselves as human beings, either, you know, our physical bodies or our minds and our personalities, and astrology too. You know, those are all things that we use. And human design is like the sum of all of those things, but you're not taking a test.
Sure.
So that's quite different about human design, is that with the Enneagram or the Myers-Briggs, you know, you're usually answering questions, and you're not doing that with human design. And that's how some of the science, you know, the quantum physics comes into play. Same for astrology. It just uses your birth time and the location and the date, of course.
Sure.
And you just plug that in, and then there's an algorithm that generates what is your chart, and then that's your blueprint. So you get a human design chart, and that chart, what you're looking at, I mean, number one, it's very confusing, and you can generate it for free online. But
and we'll link to that in the show notes.
Awesome.
For everyone who wants to, like, oh, I love this. Where can I do it? Yeah, just check the show notes and we'll do it there.
Yeah. And it's rather confusing what you're looking at, but it is, you know, once you find someone who can read it for you and explain it to you, it is the purest form of who you are. It is who you were born to be. It's your like energetic and genetic signature. So it's all of the strengths that you came in with, all the vulnerabilities that you came in with, and it's like your life path, your personality, what you're really good at, the places that you might struggle, and ways that you're open to conditioning and energy from the world. So it's a very complicated system, but it's a scientific, logical system. Human design really is the place where science and spirituality meet. It's right there at that crossroads. I mean, so much of it is mystical, and so much of it is logical and actually rooted in science, and that resonates so much. So much
of
me.
Life is just that way, isn't it?
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Having recently had a baby, there's definitely some spirituality and science and physicality there too. So there's a little bit of where everything meets. Yeah. So
it's so beautiful.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've done my chart before. You know, I having someone interpret it, I think, is very important, because you look at it and there's, you know, things. So I'm a generator with emotional authority. When you might have to explain what that is.
Sure.
And then, but you know, there are certain things that are, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong saying this, like certain organs that are open or closed or that sort of thing. And that's where I kind of got lost a little bit.
Right.
So can you share a little bit about that? You can use me as an example if you want. But,
yeah, absolutely. So human design does initially break down into 5 aura or energy types.
Right.
And so your energy type is the generator. And so about 35 to 37% of people are generators.
Okay.
And altogether, most people are a generator type. So 70% of the population is either a generator or a manifesting generator.
Okay.
And you guys are the life force of the planet. You guys are the ones that are here to master and to build and to just pour all of your energy into what you love. You are the type of person that creates energy for yourself and for other people when you're following what you love.
Yes. So we make shit happen.
Yes.
That's pretty much how I sum it up.
Yeah. You guys are the builders and the masters of whatever it is that lights you up. Things that light you up that just don't make sense. You're just like, I just love this thing. It's not making me money. It doesn't make logical sense. Whatever it is for you, but this lights me up. That's the way that you're designed.
The key, what I just heard you say, is that it builds your energy. Like if you're following what lights you up, it's also building the energy to follow that path, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
Because that's the difference sometimes. Because I know personally, I can make shit happen. Like that's kind of my joking phrase.
Yeah.
But I can also burn myself out, which I have before.
Right.
So I'm working. Part of this podcast is that what lights me up.
Yes.
What do I love to do? What do I do well?
Yes.
And so I think that's important for people to know things like this about themselves, so
Absolutely.
that they can follow that path and not drain themselves of energy,
Right.
but actually fuel themselves from it.
Absolutely. 100%. Yes.
Yeah. Great.
Yes. That's
Great.
what's so beautiful about the generator. And what you were just alluding to is the conditioning.
Yes.
Is the conditioning of that the generators are subject to is that you have a lot of energy and you're here to do things for other people. And of course it's nice to help other people, but generators, from day one, when they're little children are praised for doing things that they're not crazy about. They're encouraged to do things that they don't actually love. And so over time they learn that they need to be giving all of their energy to things that are not what they actually want to be doing, right? Things for other people, and that's where the burnout comes.
All the shoulds.
Yes, exactly, the shoulds, yes. And so that enormous, beautiful sacral motor within the generator that's always consistent is not creating energy because it's pouring its energy into things that actually don't light it up, So that's a big thing that you have to contend with.
Yeah, I think a lot of people could relate to that for sure. Since 70% are generators.
Yes. And the emotional aspect of your being. So that's your authority. The authority, if anyone listening, you're looking at your human design chart, it comes with those keynotes. So it'll say type, strategy, authority, that kind of thing. And so the authority is the part within you, within your physical body, that makes your decisions. So it's your inner authority. So we're all taught to make decisions with our minds, right? You need to weigh the pros and cons, be very logical, whatever it is for you, really use your brain to make your decisions. But it's only about 2% of people that are designed to do that, actually. So the majority of people, it's about 55% of people have this emotional authority. And what that means is that your emotions, your feelings, they make your decisions. And so emotions are also in a wave where they fluctuate, they go up and down, and they have nothing to do with what's going on around you. They have nothing to do with your situation. It's just you have this motor, this emotional motor within you that's turned on, and so it will color your days, right? Like if you're in a low mood, it will kind of color what's happening. If you're in a high mood, you're feeling really great, it will kind of color what's going on around you. And so then you can't, essentially for someone with emotional authority, it's like you can't have 100% clarity in the moment. You'll never know in the moment whether an opportunity or a relationship or a situation or blah, blah, blah is correct for you. So the thing is to give it some time, sleep on it, wait a week, wait a few weeks, whatever you need to see how your feelings change about it. And then once you've gone through some of your emotional wave, if you're still excited by that opportunity, then you know it's right for you.
Yeah, and I've learned to do that after almost 40 years of figuring that out. I just sleep on things because I am a decisive, let's go, let's move person, but that hasn't always been. Sometimes it's beneficial and sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
But I know personally that I've moved to, let me just sleep on it, which sometimes pisses people off when like you don't make a decision for a while, and I've learned not to care.
Yes.
My grandma, she told me to care less a long time ago, and I didn't know what that meant because I cared so much.
Yeah.
And I cared for
to.
everybody. Yes. And then as I got older and I worked on self-development and everything, and I was like, Grandma's so smart. And I was like, just care less. Yeah. And so that's like my motto now. Now, of course, when you care less, people think you're a bitch who doesn't care. Yes. And my grandma would say, but it doesn't mean that you don't care. Right. You just care less.
Yes.
And so, so I do now take a long time to make my decisions because I realize the emotional fluctuation.
Yeah, your feelings will change. Sometimes you can say yes to something and then a week later you're like, oh, this is not right.
Yep. I got wrapped up in whatever and said yes.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that. Yeah,
definitely. So talk about if there's more to share. I'm sorry.
I would add that it gets a little bit more complicated, and this is why reading can be so beneficial.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Because as a generator with an emotional authority, you also have that sacral center that's defined, and so there's defined and undefined, and defined within the human design chart. Anywhere that you see color within the chart, that energy, that specific area is defined. And undefined is anything that's white within the chart.
Sure.
So if wherever there is definition, that means the energy is consistent. And if it's undefined, then the energy comes and goes. It's not that you don't have it, it's just not always present.
Sure.
So you, as a generator with an emotional authority, you have your emotional motor and your sacral motor defined. They're always consistent. And so they will together make decisions. So that sacral, that enormous life force that makes you a generator, will also say yes or no. And that will say yes or no in the moment to things. And it's helpful to ask yourself binary questions like, do I want to eat pizza right now? Do I want to take this job? Do I like this person? And it'll always be a yes or a no. I have energy for this thing. I feel pulled towards this thing, or no, I don't. And so that's where it comes to be a little more complicated.
Sure.
And why a reading can be helpful, because if you think you're just emotional authority and you're not listening to your sacral, then it can be a little more challenging.
Yeah, so, of course. Yeah, no, getting into more of those energy centers or organs or that I've seen that are, I guess defined, undefined is the right term for that. Yeah. And that's where, like I said, just didn't understand. However, I kind of, thinking of the sacral chakra as a defined space for me, like, I love orange. Like, if you saw the pink samples I have in my living room right now, they're all shades of orange. And with, even that chair you're sitting on has shades of it, but pulling it out, like, it's everywhere. It's in my bathroom. It's, that and turquoise. So,
really?
Yes.
Oh, beautiful.
So it's always usually sacral and throat chakra colors. It's very interesting to me about that. And maybe before you leave today, we can look at my chart for a second. Not for reading, I respect that. But like, it's just kind of interesting. I can't remember if I had a throat thing or whatever.
I'd be so see it.
But, so, you talked about there's different types. So generators, there's 70%. What are some other types?
Yeah.
And then there, explain what strategy is and maybe even some other types of authority.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'll just touch on the generators again. So most people are a generator type. Yeah. We talked about the pure generator, which is you. And so we talked all about that. And then the other type that I'll talk about before the second generator type is the manifestor. And so manifestors make up about 8% of people. They're not quite as abundant as they used to be. And the name is kind of misleading. I don't want anybody to think that, well, if you're a generator or you're a reflector, then you can't manifest, because you're not a manifestor. Manifestors, it's helpful to think of them as the initiators. So manifestors are the people that really are the trailblazers. These are the people that can get the ball rolling. These are the people that push energy. Whereas for the generator type that we just talked about, the aura is open and it's attracting. It's magnetic. And so things will always be coming to you. The source, universe, God are always going to be sending you things to say yes or no to accept or to turn away. And the manifestor is the one that just goes out and finds them and like makes them happen. And most of us are taught that that's how we all have to manifest, is that we have to visualize and we just go make it happen. Just go initiate, just go start the thing, reach out to the person, just like make the I don't know, whatever, you know, start the thing. And manifestors are the only ones that can actually do that. But they're not built to sustain, to follow through, or to master necessarily like a generator is. And so manifestors are all conditioned to live like generators, and that they've got, you know, to just like do the 9 to 5, you know, follow through and build and hustle and work, you know, that kind of thing. And hustling isn't healthy for anyone, even the generator type. But you know, especially for someone like a manifestor, it's really unhealthy.
Yeah. So do you, is it more like they have the vision, they start it, but
that's right.
That's like where their energy is.
Yes.
So visionary sort of.
Yes.
But actually starting it, not just having a vision and sitting on their couch eating potato chips or something. But actually doing it, but not necessarily following every aspect through. They need probably more people around them.
Yes.
As a team.
That's it. Yeah. So they're very good at getting the ball rolling. And and they just get these urges to do things, to start things, and so they can seem like they have ADHD. They can seem like they can seem flaky. But really that's just conditioning. That's other people that don't understand that, well, hey, this person's a manifestor, and maybe they're done starting this thing, you know, it's time for them to start something else. Sure. So they can kind of be all over the place, and you know, they're really fast movers. They can go from idea to manifestation very quickly, and they are pure energy. They're designed like that. And so their strategy, the strategy is just what goes along with each aura type, and it's just the way that each person can use their aura type to get what they want out of life. So for the manifestor, it's just to initiate and let other people know. It's initiate and inform. So because manifestors can be you know, so fast and so all over the place, just informing just comes along with initiating, because it lets other people know, you know, what the manifestor's doing. It's like, hey, you know, I'm a manifestor, I'm going to get on this boat and I'm going to go to this place, and I'm letting you know because you can come or not. You know, they're not asking for permission. It's just like, I'm going to go do this thing, and if you want to come along and help me or enjoy it with me or be with me, great. But if not, I'll see you later. So that's how their strategy comes into play. Because they don't actually need energy around them to change. They don't need energy to shift. They are the ones that push the energy. And to go back to the generator type, the strategy for the generator that we've already talked about is to respond. So like I said, you know, the universe is always sending things to the generator type, because the generator aura is so magnetic. So the generator doesn't have to go out and push and initiate. You know, they can respond with that sacral to anything that comes their way. And so that's how they manifest, is by following the yeses, essentially, that they, when they respond and they're like, yes, I feel energy for this, I'm going to do this thing, you know, this idea came to me, I'm going to go do this thing, or this person came to me, this job offer came to me, and it feels right, so I'm gonna go after it.
And personally, I totally, you know, it took a long time for me to do that, and so without completely knowing, you know, human design and working from all of that, I shifted that. There's always more work and layers of the onion to explore, but starting to pay attention to, and just letting things flow and allow them, because I am a push, get things done. I've done that my whole life, but it also led me to burnout. And so understanding that I can allow some things, you know, is what shifted some things for me. And I'm, you know, have to let go of control too, because I have that, like I'm controlling in many respects, because I've always been that way, very detailed and very black and white and that sort of thing. But from a business perspective, people probably see that a lot. From a more of vision perspective and doing perspective and home life, it's shifted to more, what am I going to do and take on? Is this right? I don't have to make a decision now. But I will also, just for the audience's sake, shifting that is not easy.
No.
Because especially when you've controlled certain outcomes, or tried to, because we really don't have control.
Right.
But like just allowing and trusting in some higher whatever you believe in, something higher, bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
Is very beneficial, and I think sometimes what's missing. But it's also trusting, because your body will tell you, like the Sacral Center. Without knowing that, what you just explained, like I would joke. I can't believe I'm even going to say this, like in public on the air for whoever to listen to. But like I would joke, as I worked with the energy of the pelvic bowl and the wild feminine, that sort of thing. I would tune into this area. Ultimately, I would tune into the sacral chakra. So without even knowing the human design kind of thing. And I would joke that I would use my uterus as a magic 8-ball.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that.
So I can't believe I just admitted that to the world. But I mean, literally, because I did Mayan abdominal massage for a long time, so I got really connected, because in Mayan culture and Mayan medicine, the uterus is the second heart of the woman. And so if it's out of balance, the whole woman's out of balance. So I got connected to my uterus, and then with the pelvic work of the wild feminine and learning about that, which I still am, and sharing some, that's what I would do. And it'd be very interesting. So when that's you're like, beautiful. Oh yeah, generator works from the Sacral Center, and I'm like, so everybody's got every woman, even if you've had a hysterectomy, hysterectomy has the energy.
That's right.
There.
Yep.
So that's
the energy does not leave.
Yes, it does not leave. And so whether, this whole sacral center, and whether it's the physical uterus or the energy of it, like it's there, and we can tap into. So
yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. I'm so glad too what you said about trust and just allowing, because the basic generator fear is that if you don't go out and if you don't push and if you don't initiate, then things aren't going to happen.
Correct.
So trust is so big for the generator, and really it's your magic is like the more that you do what you love and the more that you focus on play and pleasure is the more you clean up your energy and the more stuff comes to you for you to say yes or no to. Yeah. It's you just open yourself up to more opportunity.
And it is true. It's definitely true that happens. Yeah. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, yeah.
So what are some other either type strategies, authority or whatever?
Yeah.
So you don't have to explain everything, because people need to do this and have a reading, because it gets really in depth.
It does.
I mean, it's a map, and it's a beautiful map.
Yeah.
But just some other things who may not be make shit happen kind of people.
Right.
What about those other 30%?
Yeah, yeah. So the third type is the manifesting generator. Okay. So there's a type that's a hybrid. Okay. And this makes up the other 35 to 37% of generators.
So you have the generator, the manifester,
and the manifesting generator.
And the manifesting generator.
That's right. So the manifesting generator is this hybrid, and so they have the abilities of a generator and of a manifester. And so it's funny, the quote that always comes to mind for the manifesting generator is something from like a Spider-Man movie where it's something like, with great power comes great responsibility.
Sure, yeah.
And it's because for manifesting generators, it's so challenging to learn how to balance this very quick, very urgy manifester and this very slow, sustaining, like Buddha energy of the generator that's like, I can sustain this. So essentially what's going on for the manifesting generator is there's this manifester that is interested in all these different things, wants to start all these different things, and the generator isn't always on board. So manifesting generators are all over the place. These are the people that like if you're going to stereotype a manifesting generator, it's like they're the ones that have their 9 to 5 and then they're running their own side gig and they're going to pottery class at night. Like they're just doing all these different things, and they do them all so well. And and so they get bored, if you want to say that, kind of like a manifester. Yeah. But they've also got that sacral, so they can sustain some of it, for a long time until the sacral says no, and then wants to move on to the next thing and master that. So they are also builders and masters of things, but they can switch around a little more. And so they have the strategies of the generator and the manifester, which is to initiate, but also to respond to those manifestor urges, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are projectors.
Mm-hmm.
Projectors make up about 17 to 20% of people.
Mm-hmm.
And projectors are quite different. They're kind of like the aliens on the planet. And they have this aura that's very different. The energy works in a completely different way.
Mm-hmm.
So manifestors, generators, and manifesting generators
Mm-hmm.
have these really large round auras that surround the body.
Mm-hmm.
And projectors have a very focused aura. So if you can picture it kind of rounding the body and then projecting out, like it goes to a point in front of the person's body.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very focused. It's very penetrating.
Mm-hmm.
And so projectors are designed to see the other. They are designed to recognize the other. And so they can see so deeply into other people and into systems and into the ways that things work.
Mm-hmm.
So they make very good teachers, guides. They're also called the CEOs of the future.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, what work looks like is changing.
Mm-hmm.
Projectors, like manifestors, are also non-sacral beings,
Mm-hmm.
so they don't have that ability to sustain energy
Mm-hmm.
or sustain work, or, they run out of energy. Projectors
Sure.
run out of energy when they're doing what they love.
Mm-hmm.
They don't create it for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So they have less energy available, and they're designed quite differently. And so the strategy for the projector is to be recognized and wait for the invitation to share their gifts.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can imagine, that very pointed, very focused energy,
Mm-hmm.
and the projector just has a very unique perspective because of that differently shaped aura.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not invited to share that, then it's very uncomfortable for people around the projector. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Projectors can be so easily labeled as bossy or controlling or anything like that, because they have the perspective of what needs to be done to like tweak the energy or to improve or whatever. And if they don't know that they're sharing their projector energy without being invited, then it's like a knife in the other person's back.
Sure.
So there has to be an energetic opening
Mm-hmm.
for the projector to step in and share what they know, or to do the work, or to tweak, whatever.
Sure. Sure.
And then the fifth type is the most rare. It's only about 1% of people. And this type's called the reflector.
Okay.
And they get that name because that's how their aura works, is they're completely open. When you see a reflector's human design chart, all of the 9 energy centers are white.
Okay.
So anywhere there's whiteness, the energy is inconsistent, and anywhere that there's whiteness, you are open to conditioning and the energy from the world. So you absorb and you reflect or amplify the energy of people around you.
Okay.
And so the reflector is the most collective of all beings, and is such a reflection of their community. So in a way, it's like they're everyone and no one. And there's a reason that there's one for every 100 people, because they are supposed to be in the center of the tribe, showing us how healthy our communities are. And so they're very, very open, very sampling of energy, and they reflect back to everyone, everyone's emotional health, everyone's mental health, everyone's thoughts, opinions, everyone's identity, all of that stuff. So quite rare. And their strategy is to wait a lunar cycle, which sounds kind of crazy.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
It shifts. Like we do moon wisdom in our
Okay. All right.
Wild
So-
Wisdom Collective Facebook group. So like,
Perfect.
no, I totally get it.
Okay.
That, I'm pro woo.
Yeah, good. So reflectors are designed to be in tune with the moon, right? Whereas everyone else, all the other types, are considered solar beings because we have definition, we have fixed color within our chart. The reflector is more in tune with what the moon is doing, and so when they wait a full lunar cycle, 28 days, then they are able to decide and really understand what's right for them. When opportunities come their way, ideas, people, that kind of thing, when they wait 28 days, when they wait for that moon to go through all of its phases, then they have a clearer vision of
Sure.
where to go.
Sure. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. So what are you?
I'm a projector.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay. So you're an alien.
Yes, I'm an alien. That's right.
I got that.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, great. And
Yeah.
so how did that, so once you found out projector, what authority do you have?
I'm splenic authority.
Okay.
So that
okay.
is, that's just another one of the energy centers.
Okay.
And that does correlate with the spleen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the most ancient of the energy centers. It's an energy center that we share with all other animals, and it's the instinct, the intuition, the survival-based fears. It's the thing within you that immediately says, like, this person is wrong, something smells off, you should not be here, this is unsafe. Or it says the opposite. It says this feels super good, like this leaves a good taste in my mouth, like I love being here, this feels healthy. So
how did finding, projector with splenic authority, and learning about this, and then of course I understand, you went through a course and learned even more and got certified so you can help others, but how did that help you?
Yeah, it helped me enormously, because I was in misery before. I was absolutely miserable. I was in a job that was taxing in a lot of ways, and I was very sick, and I couldn't figure out why I kept getting sick, why I couldn't heal, and why life was so painful. I just couldn't figure it out. It's just like there was this enormous shell that I had yet to crack. I'd gone through so many layers of personal development, kind of like you said earlier. I'd gone through so much, but there were these other things that I still couldn't hack. And finding human design was like the life hack that I was looking for. It just opened my eyes to so many things that I had never considered. This enormous way in which I was conditioned to hustle and to be the manifesting generator when my sacral is not defined. I am inconsistent. And so even though I was doing things that I enjoyed, I would go home and I would be absolutely dead. I would not function. And I was so burnt out, I was so sick, and this gave me permission. It gave me permission to stop being that person that I wasn't in so many ways. That's just one of the ways in which it was definitely the biggest way in which I was conditioned and I didn't know. I thought I was doing pretty good, and like seeing the ways in which I was conditioned and like letting that stuff go, but with work, around work, I had not figured that out yet. So that was the biggest way that the universe, human design system was just like, here, stop doing this. This is who you really are. Stop being this other person. Yeah. So true. And I love that you talk about this unlearning. I'll never forget when I went to college. I went to Purdue at first. I graduated from IUPUI, but I went there for 3 years, and I'll never forget, my mom goes, "You've become more liberal since you went to college." Like, it wasn't intentional. It was just that I was outside of the home. And exposed to lots of different things that I wasn't at home. And it was just, I'll never forget my mom saying that. It was interesting. And it was just, you're just exposed to different things. And so kind of eye-opening. A little eye-opening. So shatters a worldview, and then
it
changes everything.
Yes. And of course, in 20s in college, and certainly wasn't necessarily doing all this self-development, and that came later, but just had opened up that worldview of different things. And I mean, that was when Ralph Nader was trying to run in the Green Party and stuff like that, and which is laughable a little bit, but it was just sort of like, my parents were like, "What?" and so, but it's just interesting when you start unlearning and realizing how conditioned we are, and not that our parents try to condition us.
No, definitely
they're
not.
Conditioned themselves.
That's right.
And that's what we always have to remember, is that they have their own stuff.
That's right.
That was passed down to them.
Yeah.
And when we get to the point of if we work on ourselves, it's actually, and I was telling this to somebody else, the more we work on ourselves, it's interesting how other people change.
That's right.
But so often we want everybody to change, and they never do, including our dysfunctional families. But the more like we work on ourselves, then it's interesting how things shift,
Yes.
and watching that.
Yeah.
So
the ripple effect is no joke. I mean, that is absolutely real.
Yeah. So understanding yourself like through human design is important, because then you can feel like you have a place in this world. And it sounds like that's been true for you. Like, oh, now I know how to be a little bit more in this world.
Yeah.
And because it with the conditioning, and then of course going out into the world, you're like, do I even fit in? That sort of thing. I've just been with my family, and now I'm seem crazy, or something like that.
Yeah.
But and families are just families. Everybody has some dysfunction,
right? Everybody,
different levels. And I remember, I love my family, but there's dysfunction. But my father, and I can say this because I know he's not listening to the podcast, but his parents divorced after 25 years, and he was devastated by it, which I understand.
Yeah.
And so in his mind, he wanted a family, and the perfect family.
Yeah.
Because that was important to him.
Yeah.
And so he was always like, we are not a dysfunctional family. And it's like, I think finally he's, come to terms like, we're dysfunctional on levels, but there's still good things, even though, like you said, a very loving family.
Yes.
My family's very loving.
Yeah.
I was, this is a little tangent, but I was watching, have you watched The Queer Eye in Japan?
Yes.
And I was just like saying I love you is not
right.
something they do. And I was telling and that was a great show, by the way.
It was, yeah.
And but I was telling my daughter, like, I tell her like 100 times a day, I love you so much.
Right.
And I was just like, I can't even imagine.
I know.
And I was told I was loved and shown love, and and some people don't get that, but even as dysfunctional as my family is, like, we have that.
Yeah.
And that's important. And so, I love the quote of, like, if you think you're enlightened, like, go home to your family.
Yes.
It's so important, because we can do the spiritual bypass and, like, I got it together, I meditate in a cave and whatnot, and I I'm vegan and that sort of, I do yoga every day, and it's like, well, but what have you worked on with your family?
Right.
And this isn't necessarily what we were supposed to talk to today, but I found that doing energetic work and that sort of stuff can heal family, like, issues without having to confront and deal with them. Of course, sometimes you have to confront and deal with them, but that's been interesting. It's stuff that I've been doing lately, some ancestral healing stuff.
Wow.
So
that's
maybe
powerful.
I'll share that on the podcast one day.
Yeah.
So do you have a link to do the graph on your website, or
I don't.
Okay, we'll link to where everybody can do that.
Yeah, there are a couple of websites. I mean, if you just Google human design, the very first website that comes up, you can just plug in your information there for free, and it'll generate it.
Okay, and if someone wanted a reading, they obviously will link to your website. They they generate their body graph. Is that what it's called?
Well,
or
they don't
map?
have to. If they want to schedule with me, they can just book on my website.
Oh, okay.
They can email me, and then they'll just send me their birth information. I can generate it, so they don't have to worry about it.
Oh yeah, so you can do it all, and then you meet and discuss and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so. So that's a way for someone, because I always like to give, like, practical ways of, like, here's how you can get into this.
Yes.
Like, if this really resonates with you, here's how you can get into that. So we'll definitely link to both your website and even a place online that you recommend to do the graph if somebody just wants to do it. And then after someone, like, meets with you and you kind of share, what are the next steps? Like, what do people generally do? Are they like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I was like this, or what do you see happen a lot?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, it's different for everybody. Some people just find it really validating, and they're just like, oh, thank God, I can stop doing this thing, and I can really lean into this. And so it's really subtle for some people, but really grounding at the same time. It just like really roots them. But for other people, like they quit a job, they're like, this gave me the permission to completely cut ties with this, whether it was a job or it was a person. And first and foremost, human design is just an experiment. It's just something for us to play with, for us to trial. And so that is what people go and do, is because that's a big difference between human design and, say, astrology or the chakras or the Enneagram, is that it gives you, it's like a toolkit. It's like, here, take this and go use it, go play with it, go try this thing, maybe you just learned, that this is your strategy. You just learned that you're designed to eat this way. You just learned that that your mind works this way. So go play with it, go let go of these other things. Stop forcing yourself into these homogenized, whitewashed boxes and go experiment with these other things, see how those feel. And if they stick, then great, then we figured something out.
Yeah. I love that you said tools, because I always tell people, a lot of these things, even yogic healing things, like, are tools in a toolkit.
Yes.
And you have to either experiment with them, like you mentioned, and see what sticks, what resonates with you, or use them as, like, you have a toolbox and you pull something out when something's not working.
Right.
So, or you need it because you're all off course or something like that. And the more that, or at least my opinion, the more that people use their tools, the more, because you're always going to have this ebb and flow and this flux, and so the more you know about yourself, the more you use the tools that are available, that you learn about yourself, like, that's how you stay in balance or come back to balance. That's right. Yeah. So, any final things you want to share?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Nothing.
You shared a lot.
I did.
Beautiful.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Yeah. I think this is very interesting for me too. So I think it'll be very interesting for all of our audience out there.
I hope so.
Because a lot of times we're just searching and we don't understand. We think we have to fit a mold, especially a family mold that has been molded over time. Yeah. And when we start to understand about ourselves and like you said, unlearn some of the conditioning, like, we can really shine.
Yes.
And this is a huge tool to help someone do that.
Yes.
And very accessible. So thank you, Hannah.
Thank you so much. I
appreciate it. I love the conversation, and I think everybody else will as well.
Great. Thank you.
So, I want to hear from you. What did you think of today's topic? Direct message me on Instagram or Facebook, or better yet, join the Wild Wisdom Collective, my free Facebook group, and chime in on the discussion. I look forward to hearing your thoughts and insight. And if you love what you're hearing, please take a moment to click the button on your smartphone to subscribe. Or, better yet, write a review and tell me why you love tuning in. And maybe you'll be featured in our listener spotlight on a future episode. I cannot wait to see you again, same time, same place next week. Wild blessings.